what does it mean to be a priest? We have so many different opinions of the priesthood that it's almost impossible for one to know what it actually means to be a priest just from face value. But that's our mission today, to find out what it means to be a priest. I'm Robert Gall, and welcome to Fact Finder. Welcome back. I was just reading a book about a local hero of sorts, a man by the name of Father Capon. Quite an interesting story, really. He was a priest from the small town of Pilsen, Kansas, who decided to take up the war efforts and become a chaplain for the Korean War. This right here is a book written about him called The Miracle of Father Capon, Priest, Soldier, and Korean War Hero. And this really gives a perfect example of what a priest should be. He goes through, there's many examples, but some of my favorites are about how he, in the prisoner of war camp, helps motivate the troops to stay willing. For instance, in this one passage, no, he says to one of the soldiers that is thinking about giving up. You're going to get better. You're going to get out of here. You just walk on that foot. And that's, simple stuff like that he says over and over again. Just convincing people to carry on is what really makes Father Capon a standout hero and something we should really all look up to, priest especially, to be a man like Father Capon. I'm a student at Capon Mount Carmel to get an insider view of what the priesthood is like for a student at Capon. What are your opinions on the priesthood?
I think it's pretty chill. I have a great amount of respect for the priesthood. I know it's a bunch of work, going to seminary for a bunch of years, and then coming here and dealing with all kinds of people and situations.
Would you ever consider being a priest?
I think not, and I don't think it's calling me, TBH.
Well, thank you very much, Manel. We'll see you later. Welcome back to Fact Finder. Here we're about to see a different side of the priesthood, the societal side. Guys, people already throwing stuff, making jokes, yelling at us, racial slurs, necrophilia, shouting all sorts of negative stuff about priests, self-righteousness, cannibalism, touching little boys, overall negative views from the societal viewpoints. Lots of pedophilia. Overall, if we were just to look at this, we'd see an overall negative view from the priesthood. A view that one would kind of take the assumption from that they're overall bad for people and that they're useless. At the very least, that we shouldn't believe in them. But this is only one side of the story. When we come back from our commercial break, we'll take a different side of the story, the priest side. Last time, we saw how priests were viewed negatively from society. And right now, we come back to see what priests view themselves as, or what their role actually is in the church. We see priests as mediators, at least from the priest's perspective, as people to be a go-between between God and man, somebody to have a strong connection with God, but also a connection with man. We see priests as administrators of the sacraments. Is a perfect example of this. People delivering the Eucharist to the masses, or being confessors for the people. And this is just one of the many roles priests have, but it's a perfect example of how they really care about the people, but yet have this strong connection with God. They're always looking for the interest of the people in terms of what they need to get to heaven. And I believe that's one of the strongest motivators for us when we look at priests as vital to society, is how important they are, how important it is to have a mediator between God and man. As you see in the Bible, a passage from John 8, verse 29, "The one who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, because I always do what is pleasing to him." And this is from Jesus, but it also represents how priests are supposed to be. They're supposed to have this strong connection with God. God is supposed to be always with them, and they're supposed to be able to notice this and feel this around them, and use this presence of God around them to help them bring others towards God, so that God can be with them also. And this alone is what allows us to look at priests and see how they are, really. Not merely pedophiles as we'd like to believe from some scandals, or as people that are stuck-up virgins or cannibals, but mediators between God and man. People that bring us closer to God, not tear us away. So, we've heard the priest side of the story, but which side are we supposed to believe? We can easily as believe the societal views as we could the priest views. But what proof do we have that either one is true? Well, we can look back at history to some of the saints that really show this passion for leading others towards in the faith. And a perfect example of this would be John Vianney, Saint John Vianney, a small town priest that, through his simple works as a parish priest, led so many closer to God that we can easily see that just from him being a priest, why priests are important. St. John Vianney was very famous for his ability as a confessor. People would come to him from around the world to confess their sins to him. And he didn't do anything extraordinary, per se. All he did was lead these people to a more faithful life. And these simple acts that he did were what made him renowned throughout the world. And he's clearly an icon that priests should live up to, and clearly a symbol for us to strive for, as every human should. It said that through just hearing his words, sinners would atone for their sins because of how faithful he was to the faith. And I believe this is the perfect example of why we need priests. We need people to lead us towards the faith. And I think John Vianney is the perfect example of this. So, we've seen priests' opinions on the priesthood. We've seen society's views on the priesthood. We've seen priests throughout the ages. And we've seen students at Cave Mount Carmel. But what does it mean? Well, I'm not so sure myself. What I do know is that though some people may have this negative opinion on the priesthood, priests have been good for us. They've led us to a deeper and more alive faith in Christ and God. And I believe that without these priests, we'd never have this deep connection that we would have in the past. And that's the connection I draw, and maybe you draw a different connection to this. But hopefully, your priest leads you in a deeper faith. And if you don't have a priest, whoever guides you in faith, may they lead you to a deeper faith. And this has been Fact Finder, signing out.